Morning, folks. Another brew day today. We're doing blood orange IPA with Voss yeast, Creek yeast, the Norwegian strain again. I've been using it a lot recently. I've done a dipper, West Coast dipper with it, and which took 5.5 days. I think took 5.5 day green glass. And I did a mango milkshake IPA, which that was done I think in about 6 days. So this yeast is just kicking it for me at the moment. I'm loving being able to put a beer out quickly. This beer that I'm doing today, Bloodless Crush, is for a mate of mine whose band's got an album release. So I'm doing like freebie for them. I'm just doing like so they can enjoy it. It's blood orange with this stuff called, it's a fruit puree, Le Beyonce Blanc, and that's going to go in. I think I'm going to push the boat and put it in primary and pitch the wort. I'll put the wort on top and then pitch the yeast and do it all together. I'm wondering what it's going to turn out. It's going to be a big fucking risk because it's, as I said, this is for a mate, but I think it would work. It would. I think it'd be interesting to see. I'm not sure. I might just put it all in secondary in 2 days' time. Citra all the way through. That will accentuate the grapefruitness, the bitterness of the fruit, and then, as I said, with the blood orange, it should be an interesting brew. So let's get things rolling. So we've got the mash tun. I've cleaned it all up after my last brew and just putting all the bits and pieces together. You see there's the valves that are going through, the tap's got to go on, and here is the manifold. I mentioned this before, steampunk style. Struggled to find the word for it last time. All put together from Jim's, I think it's Jim's Beer Kit. He was the guy who sent me, or who I found his details on, to make the manifold for this specific igloo mash tun, cool box mash tun. And it works a treat, absolutely spot on. My efficiency is great. It's I'm about 72, I think I've been getting it to, so I'm really happy with that, considering when I started brewing, I swear I was like in the 40s. It was just terrible. But yeah, it's this bit of kit has definitely helped, and has changed my outlook on my Scooby-Doo brewing kit. But it's wonderful, really good thing. So there it is, just sits in there, sits into the valve, feeds onto the outflow pipe, into the tap, perfectly, just sits snug in there. Considering beforehand I had just a bazooka filter, which I think the efficiency was so down because it was down so low because there was just pockets of wort, and that never got sucked up. So this obviously, it works well because it's just a larger area that is covered. And then this is my boil kettle. As I said before, it runs on I do it on propane, but there's the false bottom in there with the outflow pipe. Then the other nut there is basically for the sight. I don't know what I call it, sight pipe. I don't know what the hell. But yeah, just all done that. Just a bit of copper pipe slashed out, and with the plastic, the silicone tubing going through, and it gives me an estimate of how many gallons are in there, and make sure that when I've reached my, if I need to do an extra boil, if I need to take it down a bit more, whatever. It's there just to give me a rough estimate of what, rather than etching in the literage inside the pot. And then this is the fly sparge arm. I'd like to add some more horizontal arms into this. Maybe I'll make a Mark II. But again, this does a really good job of helping with the efficiency. Just stick it with a silicone tubing coming from the HLT into the top of the mash tun, so it sits in like that. Tube goes into the top from the HLT, and it's just gravity fed, and I end up having to lift up the HLT and so help with the water going through when it's there's not enough water in the HLT to feed it through. But it's easy, it works exactly for what it does. And as I said, I'm producing beers that I'm so happy with at the moment that I don't really want to change anything. It just works so well for my setup and for my space. So I've just warmed up a pot of hot water because I don't have an immersion or a heater inside the mash tun or a recirculation. I heat up the mash tun before actually adding the strike water. So this water will now be emptied out of here. I'm going to leave this for about an hour because I've got to dash off. Leave it for an hour, heat up the mash tun, and then come back, empty it out. That'll be used for cleaning. And then I'll put the strike water, which is heating up now. I'll put that in, add the grain, and then we'll mash from there. So as you can see, it's just, wait, there it goes, proper hot. All right, so I've weighed out the grist. So we have 230 grams of flaked oats, 270 grams of Vienna malt, 1 kilo of Pilsen malt, 5 kilos of Marisotto crisp. So I'm going to go and mash in and play some devil tunes. Alright, so just mashed in, and I'm looking for 64.4. Let's have a look. 64, come on, all the way. You know, 64. Alright. We're looking at a good ballpark figure. Yeah, I'm happy. Always going to be one pocket that lets me down. No, that's good. Yeah, I'm happy. So we're done, mashed in, an hour, and we'll be back. Right, so the mash is finished. I'm going to take a temperature. I'm always intrigued to see how much the temperature drops. I know it varies rapidly, or it varies a lot. But I mean, it was 64 point, nearly 65. That's all right, look, it's 64 on a button. So I've lost like 0.4 of a degree over here. A little bit more in the pockets. But do you know what? That's great. It really suits. Oh, that's a cold one. Oh, say that. It really suits my needs perfectly. So. All hail old school brewing. So I know that, and I'm sure I'll get ridiculed for this, but this is my Voss technique. So basically I'm going to now start the first run-ins, and then I'm going to tip it back in to the mash so we can settle the grain bed and filter out any bits of husk, and then so it will get hopefully a nice clarity of wort going into the brew kettle. Therefore, keeping the proteins, keeping it a nice. We want clarity. But I'd say clarity, but we've got loads of oats in here as well. So I mean, it's going to, and we're using Kveik, and it's going to be a hell of a haze. But if we can settle the grain bed, then we won't have we won't have a stuck sparge, which I haven't had for a good while. But you know what? Don't take the risk. And even if it does nothing, I've been doing it for ages, and it's all worked well. So if it's not hurting anything, then just continue with it. So there we go, first runnings, and god damn it, I need a pee. So there I am, I'm just pouring the first runnings back in. So It's quite cloudy, there's lots of bits in it, so this will start filtering it all out. So what I'm looking for is a clear wort that's going back in from the first runnings, and then we'll see if there's any grain left in the bottom, and if not, then we'll start the runoff. It seems to be minimal amounts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the tinfoil out once it's finished, and we'll start the fly sparge. What you basically are looking for is a even flow from the HLT to the kettle. So basically you've got to keep the consistency about an inch above the grain bed. Hot water, just keep on rinsing off the sugars, and then we'll put it into the boil and start adding hops. So according to Beersmith, my sparge water's got to be, I know it's right to the top, look at that, what a shab. The sparge water's got to be 75.6, so we're looking at, oh man, 75.4, you know, I'm on the bloody button. Fantastic work, ready to sparge. Yeah, there she goes, sparging away, fly sparging. It's a long bloody process, but I want 34, I think. Let's have a look at what Beersmith said. It said 34.23 litres before at the beginning of the boil, and then an hour got a 10 litre boil off rate due to the weather and the coldness and everything else. So yeah, it's we're ready to go very soon. We'll be on the boil and get the first edition of hops in at 60 minutes, using Citra for this, all the way for that grapefruity citrus vibe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to so we've got 20 grams of Citra at the boil at the 60 minutes, and then we're going to do 80 grams at flame out, and then we're going to add 20 grams of Citra at when the water's in the bucket before we pitch the yeast, and then tomorrow, 24 hours later, we're going to add the extra 80 grams of Citra, as well as the fruit, the fruit puree, and then it should be done in 4 days. I've done, as I said, I've done a pale ale in 4.5 days. I did a dipper in 6 days. We did a mango milkshake IPA, and we did that in 5.5 days, 6 days as well. So we've got time for this to rock, and it should be done. I mean, fingers crossed, 5 days. 5 days from here, from this to this. So we've got the hot break. So I'm just stirring this out, and I'm going to put in my ooh la la. I'm going to put in my first edition 60-minute hops. I'm going to set up my little curtain and my little net that works for this. So I'm fed up of having loads of hops that just end up blocking the filter at the bottom. So this is 20 grams of Citra at 60 minutes. What I'll do now is I'll just push this down, and then I fold it over this way. And Bob's your uncle, fun is your aunt. Just push it down. It's exactly the same as a hop spider, but it's just easier to clean and stick it in the washing machine. So we're 35 minutes in. We're 25 minutes in, 35 minutes left. What I'm doing here is the immersion chiller. Obviously, when you drop it cold into hot water, it cools it, brings the boiling temperature down, and the boil kind of stops and has to raise back up again. So by simply just putting it on top and letting it rest there, it's heating up the copper, so when you pop it in, you really won't have any lag at all. It can continue doing your job. It's just one of those things that I've ended up doing. So we've got 35 minutes left, and then I've weighed out 80 grams of Citra that's going to go in for the flame out. And then we'll chill it to 40, whack it in the bucket, and then it goes into the fridge, and pitch the yeast, and also 20 grams of the 20 grams of Citra will also be going in today. So that's 10% 20% of the total 100 grams for dry hopping. 20 grams will go in today, and the 80 will go in 24 hours later, so tomorrow at 6 o'clock. I completely forgot that I had this, and I meant for this brew, so this is for the blood orange. I'm going to add this, and it says 25 grams, 10 to 25 grams for last 15 minutes. I'll put 30 grams in, 30 grams the last 15 minutes, and then I've also got the sweet orange peel, which I think is going to go in. Do you know what? I'm wondering if I should put both of them in. I want the bitterness, but not the sweetness. I'm going to leave this for another day. I'm just going to put the bitterness in, and I'm just wondering if I should whack it all in. It might be too overpowering with the Citra and with this. And with the blood orange puree, it just sounds like a real. But yeah, 25 grams of this in, and we'll put that in the next 10 minutes. So the boil's finished, and now we're adding the. I'm putting it into the bucket. When I get about 23 litres, I'm going to let it cool down. I'm going to do a little Australian trick that I know is that they put it in, and then they at a temperature and they let it cool later on. But I've got to rush off, so it's now 60 degrees, but I'm going to leave it in the garage. When I get back, it should be around 40, and then we'll pitch the yeast, and we'll put the hops in, and then we're ready to rock. Well, I've just got in, and the temp has dropped down, so I need to pitch this around 30 degrees, but it's 23 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the hops in anyway. I'm going to throw the yeast in. I'm going to give the creek shout and stick it in the fermentation fridge, and then it'll just whack it the temp up. It'll just start warming up anyway. It might be a little bit of a lag, but we'll be doing it. So let me get on with doing this. So I'm just going to put this down. So we pitch it in and give the shout. Yeah. So that's 4 grams going into 25 litres. So as you see, it's going to be pretty stressed. And we throw in the hops as well. Give the lid a quick spray. Throw the lid back on. There we are, done and done. And then I'm just going to give it a quick shake to get some oxygen there. And see you in 24 hours to put the next 80 grams of Citra in. So it's been a pretty hell of a long day today, but we finished the brew and I've gone to work and come back, and yeah, I've just pitched the yeast 23 degrees that the wort was at. Ideally it would have been great for it to be at 40, but the fermentation fridge will get the temperature up and we'll get it. It'll be going in at 12 hours. It's not going to be a massive problem. It's just a bit of a lag. So now we're going to celebrate. Well, we're not going to celebrate. We're going to relax, and I'm going to have a West Coast dipper that I did with the Voss, which is it's great. I absolutely love it. I'm just going to turn the camera around and then you can see it. This was this was done in I think 5 or 6 days. The carbonation took a bit longer, but you can see. So I know people are complaining about the way I'm pouring, but I'm doing it one-handed. See, so Voss can pretty much clear up. It doesn't have to be constantly hazy. Obviously it depends on your grist that you put in, but this is it's a great colour. Let's have a look up here. I mean, it is such a lovely colour, and it's so it's hoppy, but it's definitely faded. But I think this is down to bottling with hops, large amounts of hops. You're going to end up losing it somewhere along the line. So that's the day. So tomorrow, 24 hours, so 10 o'clock tomorrow, I'm going to put the 80 grams of citrate into it. Hopefully we'll have fermentation. If not, then I'm not going to put the hops in until I've got like a high Krausen. But if it's not done by Friday, it'll be on Saturday anyway. I just need to heat that water needs to warm itself up. And then we can put the puree of the blood oranges in, and fingers crossed everything's a go-go. We will still be on set for this beer to be ready for the gig on Thursday. So it's still got to be bottled as well. And I'm not looking forward to that, but it'll be done. It'll be done. Anyway, onwards and upwards.